Okay, I'm going to read Psalm 119. Blessed are those whose ways are blameless, who walk according to the law of the Lord. Blessed are those who keep his statutes and seek him with all their heart. They do no wrong, but follow his ways. You have laid down precepts that are to be fully obeyed. Oh, that my ways were steadfast in obeying your decrees. Then I would not be put to shame when I consider all your commands. I will praise you with an upright heart as I learn your righteous laws. I will obey your decrees. Do not utterly forsake me. How can a young person stay on the path of purity? By living according to your word. I seek you with all my heart. Do not let me stray from your commands. I've hidden your word in my heart, that I might not sin against you. Praise be to you, Lord. Teach me your decrees. With my lips I recount all the laws that come from your mouth. I rejoice in following your statutes, as one rejoices in great riches. I meditate on your precepts, and consider your ways. I delight in your decrees. I will not neglect your word. Be good to your servant while I live, that I may obey your word. Open my eyes that I may see wonderful things in your law. I am a stranger on earth. Do not hide your commands from me. My soul is consumed with longing for your laws at all times. You rebuke the arrogant who are accursed, those who stray from your commands. Remove from me their scorn and contempt, for I keep your statutes. Though rulers sit together and slander me, your servant will meditate on your decrees. Your statutes are my delight. They are my counselors. I am laid low in the dust. Preserve my life according to your word. I gave an account of my ways, and you answered me. Teach me your decrees. Cause me to understand the way of your precepts, that I may meditate on your wonderful deeds. My soul is weary with sorrow. Strengthen me according to your word. Keep me from deceitful ways. Be gracious to me and teach me your law. I have chosen the way of faithfulness. I've set my heart on your laws. I hold fast to your statutes, Lord. Do not let me be put to shame. I run in the path of your commands, for you have broadened my understanding. Teach me, Lord, the way of your decrees, that I may follow it to the end. Give me understanding that I may keep your law and obey it with all my heart. Direct me in the path of your commands, for there I find delight. Turn your heart towards your statutes, and do not turn towards selfish gain. Turn my eyes away from worthless things. Preserve my life according to your word. Fulfill your promise to your servant, so that you may be feared. Take away the disgrace I dread, for your laws are good. How I long for your precepts. In your righteousness preserve my life. May your unfailing love come to me, Lord, your salvation according to your promise. Then I can answer anyone who taunts me, for I trust in your word. Never take your word of truth from my mouth, for I put my hope in your laws. I will always obey your law forever and ever. I will walk about it in freedom, for I have sought out your precepts. I will speak of your statutes before kings, and I will not be put to shame, for I delight in your commands because I love them. I think that's a good portion of it, because it's pretty. It goes on for a while.
Thank you.
But yeah, we read this because it's Nathan's mom's birthday tonight, and this is her favorite psalm. So
thanks, Adam.
Yeah,
Appreciate that, man. My mom loves the salvation by promise. That's her thing, and I also want to extend welcome to the Howards, to George and Austin. It's so nice having you guys back here. I've been asking him constantly if you're coming, and a lot of people may not know this, but my mom and Austin share back-to-back birthdays. So tomorrow's your mom's birthday. So the Sagittarius mom. Is there any other, right? Well, thank you everyone for being here, and Nancy, thanks for the grace. Russ, always being a gracious host. Grace to you and mercy to you. Scotty, I'm glad you're back. You're like a recurring character on this show. You just always show up at the right time. I like that. Justin's back from doing his movie, and he's been working hard. It's good to have Jana's back. I hope you all had a nice Thanksgiving. Justin took us to Mexico, and wow, I realized what spoiled brats we are in America. I mean, man, they just appreciate so much for so little that they have. It really kind of humbled me. And so it's been an interesting week. Lots of trials and tribulations. Before we start, Abe implemented it, and I implemented this thing last week where we hand out notebooks. So if you want to take notes, maybe something jogs your memory, maybe for your share, little bit of wisdom you collect. So we're going to pass these around. If you want a notebook, feel free to take one. And we have pencils too. If not, just pass it to the next person. I want to give you an opportunity to really take things home with you, because we forget a lot what we hear. Every week since we've done this, I've been writing all of your shares down. So I have like notebooks. I have everything every one of you said, and it's really cool because I'll go back and it'll jog my memory on some things. So please take some time to write things down. You know, it has been a very trying kind of week. You know, I find that whenever I get time to rest and not have to do my normal job, it gives me a lot of times to think, and I think we push things aside with the busyness of life, you know. And I found myself, you know, saying things and doing things. Me and Justin, I got in a fight with Justin. We like just all kind of things, just over the clothes, like just little blow-ups happen. And it really, you know, rest is an interesting thing, because over and over, you know, people say God created the earth in 6 days, the scriptures tell us, and then it says on the seventh day he created rest. And there's a dimension of God where he's always wanting you to enter into his rest. And we push that aside to be busy in life, and we forget how God took time aside at the beginning and the origination of the world to really give us rest. And it's hard to rest, because my mind, you know, sometimes I diagnose myself a non-using alcoholic, because I do have those thoughts and my mind speeds and I start thinking crazy things. And that's usually when I'm alone, and loneliness has a lot to do with it. So anyway, it's been a trying week, but thankful that we're here tonight. And I really want you to receive, I was having a rough time coming up with the message this week, and God had told me, you need to talk to a mother. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I was going to ask Russ's mom to speak. You know, I'm not going to speak this week. And I was on the phone with Kathy the other night, and finally it all clicked. She was the mother I was supposed to talk to, and she gave me something to preach on. And so I want to do that tonight, and thank you, Kathy. But before we do, I got a little clip that I want you to watch. The title of my message is called The Heavenly Beggar. And it might sound weird to you. What's a heavenly beggar? Aren't beggars of this earth? Well, the clip we're about to see is from a movie called Ben-Hur. And I saw this movie at the ArcLight recently, brought it back. I'd never seen it on the big screen. I went by myself. I didn't take anybody with me. I remember sitting in the third row, and when this scene came out, I was crying profusely, and I didn't want anybody around to see that I was crying. But it really got me. And what this is you'll see there's a young Jewish carpenter. His name is Jesus. He's from Nazareth. And this guy named Ben-Hur, who was really prominent among the Romans, he was a very rich guy. He actually had his own estate called the House of Hur, and everyone respected Ben-Hur, and his best friend became the Roman garrison. And what happened was, when he became the Roman garrison, he was jealous of Ben-Hur, ends up taking away all his riches and fortune because Ben-Hur was falsely accused, played by Charlton Heston. And this guy who once had everything, he had the whole world at his fingertips, is now a slave, sold into slavery. And he's very thirsty, and this young carpenter gets his attention. So I want to start with this clip, and then we'll get into the message.
Get away from that well! No water for them! Get them away
Whew. I just love that scene. See what he saw, and I want you to notice that anytime you cry out to God for help, he always sends Jesus.
Can you do it all Sunday?
Sure. Which would you do here? I'll give it to you. I really wanted you to see that and get that, because sometimes when I just speak with the words, the visualization is always great. Even though that's a Hollywood movie made by a very powerful director, actually a Jewish man made this movie, William Wyler. I wanted you to get man's desperate cry and thirst. This guy once, who had everything, now he became a beggar. He was begging for water. He could have anything that life threw out at him. And now he's the beggar. And he cried out for help. And God sent Jesus to give him the water. And over again in the scriptures, even though this is a dramatization, we're always seeing God quenching people's thirst and hunger through the gift of God that is righteousness. You see, the scriptures tell us how much more shall those who receive the abundance of grace, we call this a grace gathering, and the gift of righteousness, how much more will they reign in life through the one man, Jesus the Christ? Just by receiving. What does the world teach you? Achieve, achieve, achieve. Ben-Hur achieved everything that life could have possibly thrown at him at that time. He was revered, he was praised, he had wealth, he had honor, he had respect, and it was all stripped away from him. And he became a beggar in this bountiful land. And God teaches us over and over again. He says, don't try to achieve and be something that the world wants you to be. He says, go ahead and just receive it. How much more shall those who receive the abundance of grace, that means there's a lot of it, and the gift of righteousness reign in life through the one man, Jesus Christ. That's what we're all about. Tonight, this selection is from a wonderful book called God Calling. And a couple of us have this book thanks to Kathy. It's written by, I believe, 2 people in the program, or A.J. Russell, I believe his name is. And this insert is called The Heavenly Beggar. It's based on Revelations 3:20. I'm going to go ahead and read it to you. It says, behold, I stand at the door and knock. That's Revelations 3:20. This is what the passage says for this date. Oh, ponder again these words and learn from them my great humility. There is a gracious invitation for those who yearn to realize a happiness, a rest, a satisfaction they have never found in the world and its pursuits. To them, Joe Blow, like you and I, the pleading answer to their quest is what I have written. Come to me, and I will give you rest. But to those who do not feel their need of me, who obstinately reject me, who shut the doors of their hearts so that I may not enter, to those I go in tender, humble longing. You see, if you reject God and you reject His Son Jesus, He's going to keep on knocking at the door of your heart even longer. He's not like me. The Father is not scared of rejection. He made you. He is drawing you close to Him. He's not offended that you've rejected Him on countless occasions when He's reached out His hand to you to help you. To these, specifically these, He didn't say to the people that just blatantly opened the door. He said to the people that shut the doors of their hearts, I go in tender, humble longing. Longing is such a powerful word. Longing can be attributed to a romance. You long to see that person. You desperately need them to fulfill every core of your being. And there's a waiting period. See, in today's society, we don't know what waiting is. Used to be a movie came out in theaters, it took 6 months to get on DVD. You were excited you saw it, and you waited. Now you can go Netflix it the next day. We're a right now generation. There's no longing anymore. Sometimes I feel like Scott, I just saw you, but I feel like you've been here because I haven't been. I felt like you never left because everything's just so fast. And God's saying, I'm longing, I'm slowing your day down to seek after you. Even when I find all closed all barred. Think of a barred window in a prison. I stand a beggar, knocking, knocking. Hey, it's me. Please let me in. Now, do you imagine what it's like to be the King of Kings and have to get on your knees and beg to love someone? There is no worse feeling as a human being when you're trying to love someone and they reject your love. It happens to me all the time. It hurts because you are giving something of yourself that you know if they just receive it, they will be changed for the better. But they don't, and they shut it off. And you feel like the beggar. Please let me love you. Please let me give to you. I'll just spit my gum out. Knocking, knocking, the heavenly beggar in his great humility, he stands a beggar. Never think of those who have shut you out or forgotten you, that now they must wait. You have no need of them. No. Remember that the heavenly beggar, and learn of me humility. Who cares if they shut you out? Who cares if your own family members have turned you down? Love even heart. We got mothers in the room. Give even more. Beg to love them. Learn too the value of each man's happiness and peace and rest. To me, his God, and learning, pray. So he's saying, learn and then keep learning. Never stop growing. Pray to copy, to mirror, to imitate the divine unrest until a soul finds rest and peace in me. Wow. How possibly could unrest be divine? He's saying he's restless for you. He's longing for you. He's anxious for you, to desire you, to send Jesus to you, just like Ben-Hur. Ben-Hur wasn't the beggar. Jesus was begging, let me at him. I'll give him water. Everyone else is rejecting him. The Roman guard says, don't give that man water. He's an outcast. You don't know what he did to my boss. And the Father is saying, hey, if you've seen Jesus, you've seen the Father. See, there's so much false doctrine out there, and these systems that we put in our head that God is some old angry Father and Jesus is the sweet accessible one. No, he told his disciples, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. Jesus is not only God's Son, but he's part of the Trinity, so he's the expression and the revelation of who God is. Because God before would always try to express himself to man and to reveal himself to the Israelites. Look what happened. They were scared because on the outside, God looks like a thunderous cloud and lightning bolts. But when you're in his presence, there's fullness of joy. Don't be afraid by what you see on the outside. Get to the inside, and then the truth will be revealed about who God is. See, God is always trying to reveal himself to man. And the Israelites, they couldn't take it because they wanted to relate to God on a performance level. They said, hey, God, give us some things to do. We'll do them. And then we're going to tell you how to be God. So we're going to tell you what to do for us and how to do it. And they started trying to control God. And God said, okay, sure. You want to work your way to me? I'll give you 10 commandments. Go ahead and try to do all these. Go ahead. Give it a shot. See if you can fulfill it. None of them could. And so that's why Jesus is so important, because Jesus is really the beggar. It breaks my heart all the time. I think of, I see these bumper stickers of parents that say, I'm proud my kid is an honor roll student and a pro scholar athlete, and they're just bragging about their kids. And the father, he didn't have time to lift his son up publicly. He had to bring him down and fulfill the words of the prophets. He didn't get to brag about his kid. He gave his kid to you so that you could feel the full manifestation of his power, and God could reveal himself to you as a Father and as a Son and as the Holy Spirit. 3 in 1. But Jesus didn't try to go use his authority as the Son of God to become king of the temples, king of the religion at that time. He didn't try to become some rogue scholar. He didn't try to work his way up the Roman system. No, he stayed in that humble place of, Father, if no one recognizes me in this room as the Son of God, I'm still going to do the miracles. I'm still going to use my power to heal the sick and to raise the dead, because that is your nature. And even if the world doesn't give me my trophies, my Oscar, my presidential candidacy, doesn't give me my place in office, it doesn't matter, because I'm expressing you to the people. And sometimes, because we do reject love and we do push it away, sometimes we won't notice the abundance of love in the room because we've hardened our hearts. And Jesus has to work extra hard to get you to know how much He loves you. And He will send people to you. He's always begging, pleading, on His knees. Please let me in. Revelations 3:20 says, behold, here I am. I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door. Now notice He just said, if anyone hears my voice. You have to be listening. He didn't say, if you've got all your ducks in a row, you're a perfect person, you've kept every law, you've done some good today, then I will come in. No, He says, anyone who just hears my voice. Okay? So listening is a part of receiving. If we don't listen to one another, we'll never receive what someone else is giving us, and we won't be able to give the love back. Not listening is closing yourself off to the love. Not just from God, from people. Listen. I will come in and eat with that person. Ooh, God is always wanting to feast with you. He sends Jesus to have a feast. He wants to throw a party in your house. And what's the first thing we all do as human beings? Oh, I'll be right back. I got to go clean up first. I got to make sure it's perfect. Did I do the laundry? Is the table set? Oh man, he can't see it like this. Right? Some of you ladies in the house, don't come over until the house is clean. But wait a minute. He just said, if you hear my voice, you open the door and let me in, I will come in and eat with you. You don't have to clean up. You don't have to call a maid. You don't have to get all your shit together. You just have to hear me, know that it's my voice, and let me in. And I'll come in and I'll eat with you. How great is that? What a calling. Of all the gods in all creation, maybe you've studied a lot of gods, maybe you've joined some other religions, you've looked up Buddha and Allah and all the other gods that are available to you to help you in life and to give you some sense of purpose. Maybe you've looked into them. I guarantee you, if you've done your research like mine, there is no God that will humble Himself to knock at your door all the time, the door of your heart. Jesus is the only God knocking at your door. The other gods, you got to go knock on their temples. You got to get on your knees. You got to pray to them. You got to beg them for what's already yours, promised by the Father through Jesus. You see, you don't have to be a beggar when it comes to God the Father. You just have to be a listener and a receiver and someone who hears the knock and opens the door. Now, free will is amazing, isn't it? You have a choice. You get to keep your door closed or keep your door open. All right? When you keep your door open, there's a nice breeze coming in. When you keep your door shut, you're going to be very claustrophobic and isolated. Because Jesus isn't about isolation. He's about an open door policy. You can come into my office anytime. But more importantly, He wants to come into your office. Wow. He makes house calls. You don't have to go visit Him in some temple or some fancy church or get on your knees in front of a pulpit. He's right here in our midst. He is in our presence. He has been welcomed into this penthouse. He kind of likes the view. I'm like, wow, this is a good one. I'm going to come in here more often. I'm going to close with one more thing. This is from John chapter 10. This is called the Good Shepherd and His Sheep. It says, maybe you've heard this before. Very truly I tell you, the Pharisees, which were the religious leaders at that time, who were always questioning Jesus' goodness, The Pharisees, anyone who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in some other way, is a thief and a robber. So Jesus is saying, everything that I've said, I've revealed to you in public and in open, and I've kept my door open. I'm not trying to climb in for some sneaky way and trick you into loving me. I've expressed myself openly, out in the open. I've done the miracles. Now come to me. Any other thief comes in another way, is a thief and a robber. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. He's saying, if you want to know that I am God, look up at the moon, look up at the stars, look up at the sun, look in your family, your friends, and your loved ones. I am the shepherd because I'm visible. I've made myself known through my creation. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. Have you ever been in a room full of people and you knew they knew Christ, you knew they had God living in them through Christ, and there's a difference, there's a different aroma, there's a different safety net that's around? That's what he's saying. My sheep hear me and know my voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. I love this. He calls his own sheep by name. He knows the number of the hairs in your head, and he knows your name because he's called you. He formed you in your mother's womb. He doesn't just say, hey, you come here. He says, hey, Randy, come here. Come on. And he leads them out of the darkness. When he has brought out all of his own, he's called you by name, and he doesn't own you, but he called you by name and he claims you as his own. He goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. See, God isn't some passive-aggressive loser sitting in a corner saying, okay, you go do your thing, I'm the shepherd, and I'm just going to let you run amok. No, he leads you. There's always a following. He's always going to take you on a journey. And the journey may be crazy, and you may get lost along the way, but you're always going to be able to hear his voice. So if you get lost in the crowd of life, and people are draining you down with their negativity and their negative energy, and their fear-mongering, and their measuring of their expectations on you that you can never do enough. Jesus said, don't listen to them. Hear my voice. I'll lead you out to pasture. I'll find you the good grass. I'll find you the good food. And he has brought out his own. He leads ahead of them, and they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice. Try taking me away from God. I won't listen to you. You're going to speak to a deaf, dumb, and blind person because I am not going to listen to you. I don't listen to strangers' voices. Jesus used the figure of speech, but the Pharisees, the religious leaders who thought they knew everything, they didn't understand what he was telling them. Therefore, Jesus said again, very truly I say unto you, I am the gate for the sheep. So he goes one over. He says, I'm not only the shepherd, the leader of the sheep. He said, I am the gate for the sheep. Come through me. See, Jesus is always giving you an access point. Okay? Your internet service provider needs an access point to get to the gateway for the internet to work in your life and you be connected to the world. Jesus is the access point. So he not only says, hey, I'm the shepherd, he says, hey, I'm the gate. Notice he didn't say, I'm a closed gate. He said, I'm an open gate, just come through me. So he says, all of them who have come before me are thieves and robbers. He said, everyone else has lied to you, but the sheep have not listened to them. He's claiming people that listen. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. Whew. That's one gate that I want to enter into. A lot of gates are closed. You'll face a lot of closed doors in your life. People will shut doors of opportunities in front of you. Jesus, he's not only the shepherd, he's the gatekeeper. They will come in and go out and find pasture. See? Jesus said they'll come in and out and they will find pasture. Finding pasture is a promise. Sheep need a place to graze. They need a place to be fed. They need a place to live an abundant life. And he's saying once they come in, they will leave changed because I'll send them out to green pastures. They'll come in me and they'll come out of me and they'll come in me and they will always be led to safe ground, to green pastures. And this, I love what he says here. The thief. That's the enemy. You've got an enemy. You think you don't? Go look at the Holocaust museums. There is an author of evil, folks. He is Satanist. His name in Greek means to thrust through. He wants to steal and rob you of all of your inheritance, and he wants to thrust through with his sword. He's come to steal, kill, and destroy, but Jesus said, don't be afraid. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. He just doesn't want you to have life. Like, you ever hear those people, oh, they lived a good life, it was fine. No, he wants people to say, oh, he lived a full life. She lived a full life. She was full of the Spirit, full of wealth, full of prosperity, full of grace, full of knowledge, full of wisdom, full of joy. I have come that you may have life and have it to the full. So how do you know it's God and it's Jesus, and how do you know it's His gate? Because anytime you enter into His gate, you will always have the fullness and abundance of life. Anything else that steals you of your joy, robs you of your inheritance, steals the thoughts in your minds and turns them into negative actions, whatever that is the thief. So know and recognize the difference. Understand where the gate is. I am the good shepherd. I'm going to close with this. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and he runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. You see, during that time, it was customary, a lot of hired hand shepherds, they would leave anytime a sense of danger happened, and they'd run to protect their own flock. They'd abandon, because see what Jesus is saying, they were hired. They didn't own you. They were a third party. They were a subcontractor. And the way I look at that is I look at religion and a lot of the church systems that are available today. Instead of coming together in a non-denominational fashion and doing good for people, we run back to our own flocks, these little hired hands. But what did Jesus do? Because they want to protect their little image of their church and their system and their little flock, and protect how good they look to the community. But Jesus, what did He say? He said there were 99 sheep, but one of them went astray. He went after the lost sheep. You see, Jesus isn't about protecting the little institutions or the little herds or the little flocks that all come together. You know, their little denominations. He's about protecting the sheep. And so He'll lead, he will do His best to go find the lost sheep and then protect the other sheep, while the other hired hand is just going to run to protect their flock and their reputation, how they look to the other shepherds. Jesus does not care about His image. His image was already drawn by the Word of God through God the Father. He doesn't care what He looks like. He cares about you. He wants the lost sheep. And He will go and beg on His hands and knees to get you to let Him to love you. He is restless. You say, well, why does God need rest? He's the Father. God the Father created rest for man. He doesn't need rest. Yeah, you're right. He doesn't wake up and go to sleep. But He is restless. Because there will be no rest in Him until you have received the full abundance of the love that He's purchased on your behalf. And no matter what you do in your life, no matter how far you fall down the pit into darkness, sometimes you may feel hopeless. You may feel like grief has gotten the best of you, that life is just too hard. You've seen too much death. You've seen too much pain. You've had too much loss. You've made decisions that have cost you your relationships and your relationship with your family. And you've tried to destroy yourself in all kinds of ways. The first thing I want you to think of the next time that you're in that place of despair, the first thing I want you to think of is that you've got someone begging to give to you from a heavenly place. And He does that through the wonderful Holy Spirit. You see, because if God's full presence passed before you, you wouldn't be able to handle it. Moses said, God, let your presence, all your goodness pass before me. And what happened? Little Joshua, he stayed up there because he's like, man, I'm not leaving. I like all this goodness. But to the Israelites at the bottom of the hill on Mount Sinai, it looked scary. It looked like clouds and thunder. But when you were inside the inner circle of that goodness, Joshua didn't want to leave. There was nothing threatening to him. He said, leave me up here, Moses. I'm going to stay here for a couple days. You go back down and deal with the people. And I know begging can seem like such a desperate act. But Jesus said, you know, there's that song, that worship song that says, I'm desperate for you. He's desperate to give to you. He didn't create you just for you to go wander aimlessly like a dumb sheep. He created you to open his door of all of his goodness and be the only gate that's open. There's so much red tape in life. Everywhere you go, people are closing doors. But he stands at the door and knocks. Will you let him in? Don't make Jesus beg anymore. He's done enough suffering on your behalf. Let him in. Invite him over to dinner. You don't have to clean up. That's all I got to say.
Well, thank you for that, Nathan.
You're welcome. Thank you.
That was a beautiful message.
Thank you.
It's really nice to be here. It's, there's a peacefulness, the spirit. I feel the spirit. I've had a very different spiritual experience over the last 90 days. And I'm not sure exactly how to convey it in a short, nice, neat little package. But I can tell you that it's changed me. It's changed my life. And I look around and my wife and I are the oldest here. And it's easy, in some ways to discuss things as you get older, personal things. For me anyway, there was a certain reluctance, I think, when I was younger, to talk about personal things in a group. I never had a problem talking in a group particularly, but about my own personal things I did. I think this comes down to my questioning what exactly it means to have a personal relationship with God, a personal relationship with Jesus. And I kind of had an idea in my mind what that was. I've heard people talk about it since I became a Christian. And I've heard people talk about it in such a way that it caused me to question why I didn't have that same personal relationship that the people who were telling me about their personal relationship seemed to have. And so in my prayers, I would question that issue. Why didn't I have the same personal relationship that I had heard others talk about? And I say that with a certain amount of embarrassment because I've had a beautiful faith, I think, a faith and a Christian walk. I've had a charmed life in so many ways. And I think really I've learned over the years that the door to a personal relationship, or the door to a relationship with the Lord, is all about gratitude. And that seems to open the door more quickly for me than anything else. And it's not, I don't know. I mean, I got to the point where I started to believe that I was the problem, which is not an unusual concept. And in my prayers, I would say, is there something wrong with me? There must be something wrong with me. And one of my prayers had always been, you give us, Lord, you seem to give us so little. You're there and you've got this incredible creation and but for me, I guess I wanted more because I had heard so many others talk about this personal relationship. God told me this. God and I had this conversation. The Lord said this to me, whatever. And I never got a whole lot of feedback. And a couple of times I actually got angry with God. Everybody gets angry with God. At least I think they do. I know I do. And again, I say it with embarrassment because I have a huge amount to be grateful for, and if I've focused on what I've been blessed with, then that should be sufficient. And I wasn't complaining about what I've been given in my life, because it's been more than I could have ever imagined. I think I'm the most fortunate person probably I have ever known. So the whole thing was a little bit of I was conflicted. Anyhow, to shorten this story, I found myself in a very unusual situation over these last 90 days. And I think that God shows up so often in situations where maybe you least expect him. You know, that's sort of, for me anyway, that's what it seems to require for him to get my attention. And in this case, without going into all the details, I found myself in a circumstance where I was just overwhelmed. You know, I'm an attorney. I ended up in a situation where I was doing a lot of legal stuff, and I was called upon to do a whole lot more than just legal stuff. I ended up going from attorney to hotelier, which I'm not. Yeah, I don't know the first thing about running a hotel. And then all of a sudden I found myself, and Austin was there with me for a while, having to try to open this broken hotel, broken resort. And I was getting resistance, and there was an enemy on one hand that was throwing obstacles and all kinds of roadblocks into my way. And I literally was overwhelmed. And what that ended up causing was something that maybe has been my deficiency all along. It caused me to turn to God, because I had no place else to go. So there I am, by myself. The Lord separated us. Austin wasn't feeling well, so she was in the U.S., I was down in the Caribbean. Not a bad place to be, however. It's not a great place to be when you're under attack. I don't think there is a great place to be when you're under attack. And so I had this little wonderful devotional that Austin had given me. Sarah Young wrote it, I think is her name. Jesus Calling, you know that one?
Well, Adam turned us all.
Adam was responsible for that. Thank you, Adam. And that little devotional just opened a spiritual door and window and connection for me, that where it seemed like every time I opened it, it was all about, you're going to have difficulties. You're going to be overwhelmed. Guess what? I'm there to take that over for you. Are you listening, George? I am here to do that. That's what I do. And but you gotta trust me with that. You gotta let it, you kind of let it go. You can't do it. You're not able to do it. I didn't make you to be able to do this. You don't know what's coming. I know what's coming. The whole thing was like, I'm like, oh. Suddenly, I realize I'm having a personal relationship with the Lord. And I mean, he's talking to me. Not audible. I didn't hear him audibly. But it was like the words were coming into my head. It's like the more I got into this, the more overwhelming it was. I couldn't wait to have those devotional times, because suddenly I had that peace and that rest, and God entered and showed up and was there and gave me that sense of, I'll take over for you. But you got to let me, because you're not big enough for this job. And there were times, I'll give you a couple of examples. Austin was sick, and she wasn't telling me how bad she was because she was worried about me, but she was going through a really, really tough time. And then I began to realize it, and I was praying about it, and these words came into my mind, just as clear as a bell. Don't worry about her. I'll take care of her. You are where you're supposed to be. I have you here for a reason. Well, his reason means 10 million reasons. But for me, one of the reasons was, you want a connection with me, George? You complaining about not having a personal relationship? Well, yes, the problem is you, George. And this was a forced submission. That's what it was. It was a forced submission. That's what he needed to do. Hit me in the back of the head with a 2x4. Okay, you know, I'm grateful, because what it's done is it changed my life spiritually. Another example, I began to realize just how sick she was, and I knew I had to go home, and I couldn't break away, and there was this struggle. And finally I hear that same internal, not audible, but voice clear, I'm trying to get you home. And, those are startling words when suddenly it's almost like, in other words, you're not listening. And it's like, wow, the problem is me. It really is, the problem is me. And if I would pay more attention and not be so difficult so that I have to be forced into submission. Anyhow, that's my little story. So it's made a major impact on my spiritual life. And I really have had a connection.
Well done.
Yeah, first real connection. Mm-hmm.
So I'm Randy,
Hi, Randy.
and I'm grateful to be here tonight, and all of it's been fantastic, and meeting Russell's parents been great. It's always great to see the source. And that was a great story, and as you were talking, it made me so grateful that I'm an alcoholic with alcoholism, because I have had that challenge. And as a principle in my life, I have to admit complete defeat. And it's not that I'm a complete defeat I can go to the Caribbean and I can interact with people, but while I'm doing it, I'm going crazy inside. And I can drive my car from here to Santa Monica, but as I'm doing it, I'm going crazy inside. And so I'm not a complete defeat at doing stuff on the outside, but I'm a complete defeat at being okay on the inside while I'm doing it. And so, because of alcoholism, I have to have that willingness to have that relationship with a power greater than myself. Right now, always. Because if I get rattled, it could lead me back to drinking or suicide. And both of those are terrible options. Right? So, but it's the same story. It's just you got there the way you got there, and I got there the way I got there. But the truth is that I need something. The most commonly used name for God is something. I need something right now, and I don't even know it. But I can always have that relationship if I'll be open to it. I don't have to be crushed to have God, to have that experience, but I had to be crushed to go for it the way that you went for it. And that story just was a beautiful example of how it, I don't naturally go to God on my own and have that personal relationship. I have to be bludgeoned into it. But if I'm living this thing as a way of life, at a certain point I don't have to be bludgeoned anymore. Today I go for it. I get up and I want to have that same relationship. I want it. And I need it. It's the air. It's like air. It's like sunlight. I've got to have a relationship with the power right now. And I don't always have a connection where I'm always hearing things, but it's nice when I do. And I got that sense from listening to your stories. I was on a cruise once with my family, and I was broke, and I had to borrow money from my brothers to get to Miami where the cruise started, but my parents had paid for the whole cruise, and I got on the boat, and I was just so in self-pity that everyone in my family was doing really well except for me at the time financially, and I just felt like such a loser, and I was filled with self-pity, and I would walk into the casino and my brother would give me $20, I just hand it to the croupier. You don't have to give me any chips. I know I'm going to lose. It was like that everywhere I went, you know. And I was telling my sad story, and I was bringing everybody down. And I went back to my room, and I sat down, and I started reading the Sermon on the Mount book. Yeah. And something said to me. It said, "You're only broke right now. Just go be the best broke person you can be." And I was like, what? It never occurred to me that you could be a happy broke person. I thought I had to be a miserable broke person. But it was so strong that something said that to me, and it was the same. It wasn't like a voice, but the words were there, and I couldn't tell you how I heard it, but I heard it. And I went out, and I looked outside, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm in the Caribbean. I'm on a cruise ship. All my meals are paid for. I don't have to gamble. I can just enjoy this cruise ship. I'm going to be the happiest broke guy on this cruise ship. And I stopped asking for money. I didn't need anything. Everything was paid for. And then I started seeing what I could add to the conversation instead of how to suck the life out of it. And I had the best time. And nothing changed. Nothing changed except for that something said, just be the best broke person you could be.
Yeah.
And it's always there. It's always there. The answer is always there if I'll ask. I just can't see, like you said, I can't see the big picture. I can't see the big picture. I can't see the good that's coming out of the thing that seems so painful. And most of the time it isn't even that painful. Just that I say so. So, and thanks for your sharing. I got a lot out of that. Being open. Being open. Saying yes. My whole life I said no to everything. I was a no. But now I could just say yes. Okay, I'm open. I'm ready. Come on in. You don't have to knock anymore. So, thanks for letting me share.
I'll share. I'm Russell. I'm grateful to be here.
Hi, Russell.
I got it. Yeah. Sorry. I won't go on too long because I'm just grateful to have my parents here and my loved ones here, and thank you so much for your message.
Hey, you're welcome.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's been an amazing holiday. It was one of the best Thanksgivings that I've ever had. And I don't like to hold on to anything from the past, but it was just extremely different than the last year's Thanksgiving, and that's it. I'm not going to bring that up anymore. It's an old story, an old idea. But no, I think the shares have been beautiful. My dad told me that story beforehand when we had an amazing lunch together, and he was telling me that, and I was moved. I was really emotional about it. I could relate 100%. And I am grateful too that I have alcoholism, because I have accepted that to my innermost self. I have conceded to my innermost self in my core, and it allows me to feel that, to know, I respect the disease that I have. I respect it. I really do. And I had some events that happened over a year ago that really made me respect it on a personal level. And because of that, like Randy was sharing, there's no doubt in my mind. There's not even an inch of thought or, pondering, or should I go for this thing? I get up, I go for this relationship right away, throughout the day. And it's not like, oh, I'm gonna go to God when things are going good, or I'm gonna talk to God when things are going. That's besides the point. It's like, that's none of my business, because most of the time I don't even know what's good and bad. I just have to talk. I just have to praise. I have to share. I do this. I just share my life. From the moment I wake up, I'm praying hard. And this morning, I actually woke up. I felt an intense amount of weight on me, and just I was in a hurry. So it was like something was ready to leave. I had to go. So, and I just started praying and focusing, and it was a mixture. And the thing is, it's grace, because who's giving me these thoughts of prayer? It's coming through. It's like, that's what Emmett Fox talks about. God is, I'm just the fingers. He's the pianist, right? And these thoughts, it's this weird, I'm praying, but where are the thoughts coming from? So it's grace that I'm even having this prayer life. And as I'm doing this, I swear, I started to calm down. My body's, I felt it. It was weird. I was the observer. I was literally observing, watching my body just calm down. And then I would read an app. I read the Jesus Calling, and then I would read the Joel Osteen, and then I read a little bit of, the big book, and then I go back to prayer, and then I was meditating, and then I checked Facebook, and then I came back to, but it's so vital for me. It's so vital for me. So, anyway, I just wanted to share that. But talking about the Jesus Calling, today it says, modern man has lost the perspective of eternity. So it says, I'll read as myself. So okay. I distract myself from the gasping jaws of death by engaging in ceaseless activity and amusement. The practice of being still in my presence is almost a lost art. Yet it is this very stillness that enables me to experience his eternal love. That's so crazy.
Was that from Jesus Calling?
Yeah, but I can share this with you.
Today, and that's not what
Didn't sound the same, huh? But I turned the we's and the they's into I. Yeah. It will help change. Yeah, we can do that later. It's amazing. We read the same thing. It sounds completely different. It's incredible. But yeah, and then there was amazing shares, and I just want to touch on a few things for myself or whatever. But so for me, the question about really has become, how am I God conscious today in the day that I'm in? How am I sharing my life? Am I in a relationship? Do I have a God conscious all the time going on, living with me right now? Because if I do, then at least I have a chance to handle situations better, to not respond, to not react, to not be a slave to my emotions, to not blow up on people, to be able to drive my car without Nancy being afraid, to pay my bills on time without being resentful, to deal with my two best friends as business partners. Like, I have to have a God conscious and what that means to me. What does that mean to me? This is a question that I ask. What does it mean to me to have a God conscious? What are these principles? And for me, it's love, kindness, tolerance, patience, slowing down, breathing, not pausing, be still. All these things contrary from Russell on Russell's Own Power, which is, like it says in the Jesus Calling, is to chase and find amusement, to constantly distract myself. Anyway, so I was talking with the sponsee this morning, and he's calling me up, and he says how all these things, quote unquote, are happening to him. Just can't catch a break. I just can't catch a break. And then he says, I was just about to get my car, and then I call the insurance, and the guy on the other line says, you have a suspended license, so I can't get the car. I throw a tantrum. I leave the car dealership, and he's like, but for my job, I'm paid to drive around. He works at a sober living, drive around other people in treatment. What do I do? Why can't I catch it? He's saying this to me. Why can't I catch a break? What do I do? So something told me to start praying, right? Because they look at you for the answers. You know what I mean? Yeah. Sure, Randy can relate. It's like, what do I do? And I'm like, so I start praying. So something inside me said, that is the break. Wow. You caught the break. He's like, what do you mean? I said, well, God gave you a break by giving you a little warning because something told you to go get a new car. So as you were getting a new car, you had to get your insurance, and then the insurance guy, while you were safe, said, oh, your license is suspended, and now you have time to go do it, rather than you not listening to something saying getting a new car, and you're just driving in your car, and you're driving around some of these people in the rehab, and you get pulled over with clients in your car, and the cop says, you have a suspended license, I'm impounding your car, they gotta go, and you get fired. Wow. That is the break. Wow. And I don't know where, I'm not, this isn't Pat Russell on the back. Wow. This is not Pat Russell on the back. My point here is that with the God conscious, for me, in my experience, comes a change in perspective, clarity. Clarity comes. And I think, and with the clarity becomes freedom for me and having a chance at life. And I can see things as they really are, not how my mind tells me they are. I can see people for who they really are, not how my mind tells me they should be. And he got really quiet. And he just said, you're right, I gotta go. But it wasn't about me, because it sounded really like that, and I swear I don't mean it that way. But I got off the phone, and I just was like, oh, man. And I had to, I had to praise and thanks. Saying thanks, because I can't take any credit. It's really easy for me to take credit. I don't want to take any credit today. But today, right now. But yeah, so I'm excited about the holidays, and I'm excited that my parents are here, and I love this program of AA. It's I can't even begin to talk about it. Words would fail, and it's given me a personal relationship that has unaccountably changed my life from the inside, which has then changed the outsides in this past year. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Russ, that was great. Nathan, thank you so much, man. I'm thinking back almost a year ago. We started this thing, and I remember the first time we were here, all of us in Russ's place, and just it's kind of exciting. It's kind of exciting, yeah. And I do want to share that Russ is an incredible, I think, like a very wise philosopher, an incredible person at giving advice. And I've been very blessed, like my whole life, to be able to go to Russ when I need advice, and I count on it. And I just feel very lucky. It's like, man, I think, next to my mom, I think Russ always gave me incredible advice, and so I don't know. All these people that go to Russ now are lucky to get his advice, because he can, the way he sees things is just really, he could put a new perspective and perception like within a second on something, and it's really, really talented. It's like pretty amazing that you're using your gifts that you have, and Russ's dad, it's just like I look up to as well for a ton of wisdom, and I've been blessed to be able to, have that in my life this past year, and especially. So yeah, I think, it's interesting just with my walk with God. I think what's interesting, I'm learning all these tools and applications on how to get closer and connect with God. And, hearing Mr. Howard's, testimony of connecting with God, it's made me think about, my own walk. When I first got saved, I've shared here, it was like lightning bolt. It was like thunder and lightning bolt. It was an incredible experience I had, So I had this experience, and it kept with me for a little while. And then it went away. This feeling of this Holy Spirit around me that was on tap. Like I could put, anytime I wanted, I could tap into it. And I thought about it too, and I talked about my uncle. He's a Messianic rabbi. And, sometimes for me, I notice, I think God can pull away as I'm maturing spiritually. And not necessarily feel that warmth and loving presence. That's that incredible sensation that is just like, it's the best feeling ever. But I think for me, what it's done is it's really pushed me to develop my faith. And I've heard Rick Warren, who wrote The Purpose-Driven Life. He said, it's impossible to please God without faith. So I think as I'm growing in my walk with God, I think this new aspect of knowing faith, like what Randy's saying, it's like, okay, it's I'm not, I can be the happiest broken. I'm just broken now, or whatever, having that faith right now as I'm mourning through life, that God can take this to, I'm mourning now, I can get to another place. And so I'll share a couple things. Like I will say for me, I have recently, like, ways I've found to connect with God has been really in the Word and reading the Word. And my uncle has been telling me, how important it is to read the Word of God every day, and even if it's a little bit. So I've been trying to. Yesterday I spent an hour. Today I had no time, and I made work more important than that. But I noticed some of these days when I can, get in the Word, God talks to me through the Word. It's a communication. I get fed through reading, and so there's some things recently I read that I'll just share that are kind of like, I thought were really cool, that I feel like God's kind of leading me to has been, it's interesting, like, we talk about like Beatitudes, blessed are the meek and all that. In Ecclesiastes 7, it says, it is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting, for death is the destiny of everyone. The living should take this to heart. Frustration is better than laughter, because a sad face is good for the heart. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, and the heart of fools is in the house of pleasure. So, I take from that, it's, these times that we're stretched these times I'm stretched, this is where I'm growing the most. This is where I'm able to say, I can't feel the rainbow on the other side of it, but I know it's there. My faith is there in that. And so, that's, another thing I kind of noticed as I'm connecting with God, aside from the Word, is really talking real candid to God. I felt anxiety almost this whole time I was here tonight, and then I was able to say to God, I'm scared to death about this in my life. I got real, and then I felt God's Spirit around me, and so I noticed that when we can put aside what we think of, what I think of as religion, or how God thinks we need to talk to Him, or this or that, and I can just be real, and I can just be like, here's what's really going on. Because if I'm not talking to Him, I'm talking to myself. The same exact story, right? These are things we talk about, Russ, right? I'm talking to myself, or that same thing, or I could be talking to God, that same thing, because I notice it's a dialogue in my head. It's either to myself or to God. If it's to myself, it may be open to the enemy, or it may be open to, and so I noticed this where I can get real. And there were times, even when I was newly saved, there were times I asked for some outlandish things that got answered. It's another thing is kind of has been strengthening me, has been praying with other people. So good testimony this week has been praying with Judy. We said, let's pray together every night. She's really concerned about a career, and I believe personally doors opened up with my career with Russell from direct prayer that I put in with my mom. Honestly, a couple of years of prayer that I would end up being fortunate enough to make money doing what I loved, and whatever shape that took whatever shape that took, and around when I was 27, 28. So I believe this, and also, Russell's own, blessings in his walk and his family, I think have led to, our success and my, but I do know through prayer. So Judy and I were praying. We just said, okay, let's commit every day to prayer, right? And then, all of a sudden, she's trying to get an agent. The agent loves the work she just did this week. We just started praying, and the reason, and when we said the prayer, we said, we're not just asking for these things necessarily because we feel like we think we need them to make us happy, but I say in the prayer, I'm praying for this, so that as you answer these prayers, God, let it bear witness to your glory. So let us be able to say, let me be able to look back and tell people, the reason we have this company right here is God answered these prayers, And so that's why I've been saying to like Abe and other people, is like, if you're looking for, career stuff, my suggestion has always been just put it in really hardcore prayer, like you put in the work, so, and then I'll just share another thing that these are just things in kind of my walk I've been. So one other thing, kind of reading Corinthians, we're talking about righteousness and the old law, right? That's abolished by believing in Yeshua and Jesus, right? He's come to kind of take away that, right? So, but then when I read in Corinthians, it says everything is permitted, but not everything is beneficial. So as I'm growing in my walk with God, I'm realizing that not, there's the old law is maybe being righteous, but there's all these things I'm learning as I'm just reading the Word that are really interesting, ways that I feel like I'm being called to be closer to how Yeshua is, right? How Jesus is. And it says, I think I'm in Ephesians, but it says the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. These are lots of things, you know what I mean? And so, and then there's things that it talks about that it's opposed: jealousy, anger, dispute, slander, envy, all different things. So I'm learning kind of in the Word, that I feel like the more I can kind of, in my actions, act closer to what I'm being called to, maybe I will have more access to the love of the Holy Spirit. Because for me, the ultimate goal is to just feel that presence and that connection, which is that safety of that love, So just things I thought I'd share, kind of my heart this week, and I'm just grateful for everyone here tonight. Thanks.